All right. People will buy from people they trust. They will waste time talking to people that they like. Now, your question originally was based upon product versus people, right? So you're selling a product, but you're also selling yourself. Every single day you sell yourself to someone, to somebody, to something. So yes, I work for Novartis, and yes, I have a product that needs to be sold, but they're not going to buy from me if they don't trust me. They're not going to buy from me if they don't value a business relationship with me, which is different, right? Which is different. There has to be a distinction between your customer liking you and your customer trusting you or valuing a business relationship with you. Let me throw it back to you guys. What is the distinction between them?
People buy from people they trust and with people they like. What's the difference between those?
Yeah, well, think about that quote, right? In Jerry Acuff, as I was showing you guys, has this amazing pyramid which shows that the top people, right? If we're talking about product versus people right here, Stephen, which is what you wanted to know, you can go through all of these steps. People who don't know me by name, right? People who don't know who I am. I'm walking in, I'm Stephen Amitai. I work for a textile industry. You don't even know who I am. This is your first step as far as who you are. This is your first client that comes in that has no idea that you know portfolio management, right? So what does this step feel like for you guys? What does the step feel like? What do you do in this step right here?
You introduce yourself.
Okay, you introduce yourself. What else can you do in this step right here where people who don't even know you? What did we just work on for the first 20 minutes of this class?
Elevator.
Right, so you're working on how you communicate effectively with these clients right here. So it's not about the product at this particular juncture. You're talking about how we communicate with people.
So done with the people.
Okay, so now you get to a situation where these folks right here, who you didn't even know, who didn't even know you, you might have just gone in there and you might have just did a pitch. Hey, this is an initial sales call, right? You're getting to know each other. You're waltzing, right? So this is initial phone call or sales call where you're getting to know this person. Now they know you. Now they know you.
Mhm.
Right, so now you're at this step right here where people who know you by your name.
Yep.
What's this relationship like now?
It's more direct. It's more like, since they know your name, they feel more comfortable with you, but you haven't got to the next step
Right.
yet.
Do you agree? Anything you would add? So this is a more direct line, right? What else? What else would you add there?
You haven't driven confidence. You haven't driven knowledge. You haven't demonstrated emotional intelligence yet on who you are and how passionate you are. It's still, you're dating.
You did. You're early on in the process.
Early on.
Now, in these two steps right here, because you mentioned it, can you or could you enter in your product or your goods or services? Or is it too early in the process to do that?
It's too early.
What do you think?
I think heading from 2 to 3, you introduce the product.
Okay.
If they know you by name, I believe you can already introduce your product. And then you can start to dig into the relationship where, you know, people like each other, value each other, and then.
Okay. So right here is kind of where your sweet spot is, all right, I can start talking about my product. Nathan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, but it's interesting because it says people who know you by name. Do they also know you as a salesperson? Because I don't like to go back, but in the video that I watched this week on Walter Long, he says that they know me as a salesperson, so they know who I am at the general. So I have to get to the close. So
But let me stop you right there. That's okay. That's okay. Being a sales professional. That's fine. People know by now when I go in with one of my reps, A, the company I represent,
Yep.
the product line I represent, and what we're there for.
Right,
Again, we talk about the humanization of sales and selling.
yep,
They know when we walk in the door, why we're walking in that door.
exactly,
We're not selling pet food.
right,
We're not selling eye care. We're selling Cosmetics, and we're walking into dermatology practices.
right,
So when you walk in or somebody comes up to your table, you best believe that they know what your role and function is.
exactly,
And you best believe that the people that you're talking to know what your role and function is, especially, as Steven said, if you're already at this stage,
yeah,
And also know what their role and function is in the company.
right?
It's very different talking to a buyer, just a standard buyer, than to maybe an owner of a company, or maybe.
Totally. But this also goes to your point. So you're only gonna find that stuff out if you're doing this dance, if you're dating,
Mhm.
right? If you're talking to them. Now, this here, I feel like I'm doing the telestrator, like Belichick here. But this here only happens if they like you, right? If you can communicate with them, if you're providing value to what they do, and if you're identifying pain points that exist. Correct?
mhm,
All right, so we've done this one, we've done this one. Now you got this person right here who really, really loves sustainability, who really loves the rates that you can give them on their portfolio management or whatnot. So now these people like you. And I think you guys are smart enough to know when people like you,
mhm,
right? I hope at this point we go towards emotional intelligence, self-awareness, reading body language. If you're walking in the door and you see a client and that client's like, yeah, I'm out of here, I'll see you later. Does that mean that they like you?
no,
No. So this is a stage right here where you know that this person likes you. And from a sales and selling perspective, this right here, gentlemen, this right here is your sweet spot. Okay, this is where you can basically utilize your relationship building and your skills in order to get to where you need to go.
but you still don't know if they're waste, because they like you, right? And
Yeah.
the quote is you waste time with people they like, so you can get entrapped in the Pandora's box here, but not get to the next level.
So this whole pyramid talks about how you get to this next level.
Right,
You can't get to that level from here.
right, yeah,
So the dance and the marriage and the relationship that you have with these folks is you've already gone through the initial, you've communicated, they know you by name, they like you. They like you. You're halfway there right now. Right? They're vibing with you. And now you come in and now you're like, what's that?
Can I take a picture?
Of course. And now you come in, maybe this is your fourth call or whatnot, right? And now you're talking to them, all right, they like you, they're being more friendly with
That
you.
was my other question. What about time? If you look at the pyramid, I don't know, you say from box 1 to box 2, it can be anywhere from 1 day to 1 week. What do the other steps take time-wise?
I mean,
Oh.
look, we can't sit here and say from this interval right here to that interval right here, there's a predetermined time. Your sales cycle and how you build a relationship might be completely different than your counterpart and how they build a relationship.
Right.
Might be completely different from them. My sales cycle might be completely different than another representative or another industry. So to pinpoint and say that this takes a year, I can't do that. And you can't do that. That's not fair to you. It also is pre-dependent on what?
How you get to each step.
It's dependent on that person. It's dependent on the customer. Remember, the customer is at the center of everything that we do.
Right.
So if you push this and you force this, what happens?
You don't finish the process.
Okay, you don't finish the process. What else can you do? What else happens? If you force this,
You burn the customer.
you burn the customer. What else?
You show a big need.
You show a big need, but what is the repercussions of pushing this on the customer from here too quickly can result in what?
Result in people saying word of mouth.
Catastrophic loss. Meaning you don't get the sale.
Right, but then you don't just get the sale, they might tell their friends or someone else. Like, if you wanna bring their like, oh, don't trust Zev or whatever, he like rushed too quickly, he's too much of like. Overwhelming and like too much,
Totally.
yeah,
100%. And that's a great call out. That goes towards EI. That goes towards self-awareness. That goes towards questioning, listening. All of the skills, the soft selling skills that we think about from a sales competency perspective can all be missed if you rush this process. That's what sales is. So you asked, the original question was about product versus people. Right? You might have the greatest product in the world, but if you don't abide by this graph right here and respect the customer and respect the customer's time interval, you won't sell anything.
exactly.
You won't sell anything. Right? So people are friendly with you, you feel that. You walk in and all of a sudden everybody lights up. Everybody lights up. When Steven walks in the door and Steven's got some cupcakes or something to give all the ladies in there, they light up. And you feel that, right? As a sales professional, you know the offices that are going to vibe with you. You feel it. And this here shows that. These people are friendly with me. They like me, right? But there's another distinction here. The original question was, all right, how do you get people that are friendly, people that like you, people that know your name?
Yeah, respect. I could actually argue that
To respect you.
I think it's more important to be. Like how they correlate like and friendliness are both like kind of like, they aren't the same as respect, because you could like someone or be friendly with someone for a long time, but you don't really respect the person. And when they get to the respect, then it's like, oh, you're getting to close the deal.
How important is culture? I ask it because for instance, I come from Colombia, from a very different, well, to put it in a more simple way, in a country like Colombia, and one day you guys will visit.
I hope so.
Yeah, I've
I
read
don't know,
that.
people are very warm.
Yeah,
So when you go to a sales meeting, it all starts very warm, you know, a cup of, you want some water, you want some coffee, and how's it been going, et cetera, and then you dive 3-5 minutes later, you dive into the business, and everyone is very friendly. Now, in the US, which I love, by the way, I noticed, and depending on where you go, if you're in the Midwest or in the Southeast or in the West Coast, it all varies, but people are more cold. So how does culture represent, and what does that take for you to earn that relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that cultural differences are abound, and they're always going to be there.
yep,
Whether you're dealing with a doctor who is, like I said earlier, an Egyptian type or a German type, two very distinct personality types. Culturally, some ways that you can combat that. Warm environments are always the great environments to sell in, because it allows you an opportunity to sell. The colder environments I've been in, right? I've only sold in the US for 24 years, so I don't know what a warm environment looks like, right?
right,
So I look at that from my perspective. I carried 4 drugs in the bag in Worcester, Massachusetts when I was 22 years old. Right, so you talk about a cold environment, literally and figuratively. I had to learn on the fly at a very early age what it was like to sell to people in that environment. Would you mind if I just took a couple minutes of your time, you know, just to go over some features and benefits? Hey, let me pick your brain about something. You know, educate me. Can you explain this to me a little bit better? Words matter. And words carry weight, especially if you're in a cold environment. If you're in a warm environment like Bogota, Colombia, and you're sitting there and you're able to vibe with somebody, it's a lot easier to say, hey, do you mind if I get into the sales process? You mind if I get into what I'm here to talk about? We're in the US, you might have to say, again, time and interval, how you earn that respect, How you earn that time is to respect them, respect their culture, respect the differences that you both represent, right? And it's okay to say, hey, listen, when you're ready, let me know. When you're ready, let me know. If you don't mind, I'd love to keep on calling on you. I'd love to keep on coming into the office because I have something of value. We have an unbelievable product. And when you're ready, I'd love to talk to you about it. And it's okay to be self-deprecating too. Boy, this is a little bit of a different environment than I'm used to. I'm used to selling in South America where it's a lot different. And you might get some questions then and say, hey, tell me a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. It's the way to melt. It's the way to break the ice.
How would you define the word value?
Meaning,
because, and you have a lot of experience, but always in sales, in most or in 100 or in 95% of the situations, there has to be a discussion about price and benefits. What am I paying? What am I getting in return? Now, value can be defined in different ways. Value, maybe some people look at it as a cost efficient solution, or some people look at it as a better service, or as if they like you and there's a relationship in between and they can count on you. How would you define that word?
I don't think that you can sit there and take value and say, well, value is defined by one word or one definition. I think you had 3 definitions in there in itself. So value can be defined, right? Oops. Right? So value can be defined as price. There's a way that you can add value in a certain price point, correct? There's a certain way that you can add value as who you are as a representative, who the company represents. Again, remember from an emotive storytelling, right? So think about what value you add to this practice, to this customer, to this transaction. And then finally, what value does the product add? So you said price, product, and person, right? So those are 3 ways that you can distinctly add value, but to put a definite definition on it, that's not on me to define. I think that's on you to define as the sales professional. What value do you add? Does your company add? And does your product add?
I took one word out from the last video you showed from your buddy, options.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting word to put there.
Why?
Because in the world of today, and Nathan is probably in a better field to explain because of what's obviously going on now with the economy and so on. But if you're flexible and you have different solutions, different ways of helping someone, I think it means a lot.
Yeah.
You're more focused on the, let's say, on the pull and on the push. Whether you're pushing something, hey, listen, this has to be this way. If you're not agreeing with it, we cannot do business, but you're going the other way around. You're saying what's important for you, how can I add value to you, and building that up to.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, like we've discussed in my class, I'm a huge proponent of this. Why is that important? Because it's not about how we pitch our product, it's about how you make someone feel. People will remember how you make them feel. Again, to harken back to Roger McNamara's words, people will buy from people they trust. Trust, and building that trust, right? Building that respect, building that value, that relationship is about how you make people feel when they come away from a conversation with you. The value that you add, the product line that you have. It's not so much about the product that you pitch. Hey, I'm in a leveraged market, super, super competitive. The margins are so thin. Right? Think about it from a dermatological perspective. There's 9 different products that a dermatologist can choose from. So then when I go into a pitch with one of my representatives, or when I was a representative, ultimately, what does it come down to?
Yourself, the person. It's like the same thing as you go to them and leave the personal letter because that makes you stand out.
It's about you. You're the personal conduct. Now, price is a little bit different. Because price can be, is very, very black or white.
Right.
Right? If you come in too high, they can always have an objection and say, well, your price is way too high. Coming too low, well, why is your pricing so low? Why is the structure a lot different? So price is a little bit more analogous to define
It's
from a value
better to come in
perspective.
higher than lower.
What's that?
It's better to come in higher than lower, I would say, because
It depends on if you're invoicing somebody from a consulting perspective and you come in way too high, you're probably not going to get that service. But again, goes back to how do we add value if the price is what it is?
so then it's the same thing as saying, if when it comes to price, I don't know, I'm just thinking about the same thing as when you're negotiating salary with someone for a job. And they're like, what's your salary? And you hate to cap at a certain number because then you're like capped at that number and you can turn people off or turn them on. So like a good approach would be like, I feel like whatever I'm worth, sort of. Like, I don't want to say a certain number because it's whatever I'm worth. So you know how good your product is. So it's based on whatever they think your product is worth.
True.
I remember in your class, in not the second floor, the first floor, you mentioned, I think it was the first day, that we're always selling.
Always.
So you're with your wife, with your kids, with your customers, with maybe colleagues, maybe when you're buying the coffee, you're always selling yourself to someone. And I think that's very interesting how relating that sentence and that specific concept with this pyramid. Very interesting.
It's the truth. And it's not something that, Jerry Acuff, when he was looking at, how his many years, 30, 40 years in the sales industry, he didn't just come up with this pyramid and say, all right, well, this is some pie in the sky thing. There's statistics and there's people that go behind this. And I love this because at the end of the day, it is so true. You've been on sales calls with people that you don't know, right? You've seen people come to you and they don't have a relationship with you.
Yep.
And it's new, it's awkward.
Well,
And there's this delicate dance that as sales professionals, we have to do in order to ultimately get people to respect us.
well, you can't, like my first internship, I interned at a real estate firm and like I had to cold call people and that's useless because it's just like, how do you get yourself out there? You have to explain to people, just hang up the phone. Like,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, that's a cutthroat business. But you have to get people to remain smiling and dialing, right?
Right, yeah.
You have to get people on that phone. That's a tough business to do that. Ultimately, the people that are super successful, can develop this area super quickly.
Right.
Within seconds, nanoseconds, they can develop that. And then they move up to here very quickly. Very quickly. You talk about time and interval. People that are super successful at telephone sales are able to go from 0 to 60
Well,
in
I
about
feel
3
like
seconds.
now looking back, I feel like the only way that they can go from 0 to 60 is by giving them their elevator pitch, because that actually interests someone. Because if you do something that's like, hey, I call on the phone and they say, oh, I want to talk to you, and like, don't stand out, and people are just gonna hang up the phone. But if you go for your elevator pitch in like 20 seconds to them, it will keep them engaged on the line.
I'm not an expert when it comes to smiling, dialing.
Yeah.
I've never worked in that sphere. I would have to say that if I was on the phone and I had somebody, and I try to talk to every telemarketer that calls my house to hear what the sales pitch is.
Really? Yeah.
Of course, because
Fun.
it's
Yeah.
sales, and I get a couple of minutes and I let people do their thing.
Yeah.
I want to learn. I want to try to figure out, all right, what's their angle. But the successful people are people that ask you questions, right? They ask you something. For example, I upgraded my Red Sox season tickets 2 years ago, right?
Your value is going down.
I had a woman that called me up the other day and said, hey, I wanted to ask you if you were happy with the selection of your seats. Yeah, I love them. Been there for 2 years. I wanted to upgrade. Well, would you ever consider upgrading again? What are the options? Well, would you ever want to go into the suite or whatever it was?
Yeah.
So they're asking you questions, adding value, building this, right? To get into a relationship. or further a relationship. Right? So this pyramid also is important because at the end of the day, we can talk about sales methodologies. I love this because it dovetails really well with a sales methodology that's simple. Simple. And I don't know what your sales method is at your company. And I don't know what yours is when you talk to people. But if you look at this right here, okay, what's cool about this pyramid is I look at this here. Oops, I'm sorry. You're in the planning phase, right? You're in the planning phase. You're approaching the customer. You're approaching them. They're approaching you. You're getting to know them, right? Dialogue phase. Asking questions, learning about their business. They're learning more about you, and you're learning more about them and their pain points and how best you can serve them. Here, in this phase.
Questioning and listening, you mentioned.
Questioning and listening, right here.
Interesting.
Right? Finding out more about them, finding about their business, asking them questions, 90-10, 90% of them talking, 10% of you talking, right? You have 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. This is that stage right here. Plan, approach, dialogue. And up here, what do you think you can do at this moment? Where people who value a relationship with you and people who respect you.
You can close there.
Right? What do you think can happen right here?
I would call it build because you can use the word close or you can use the word build. Either you're on you're entering the rocket ship to go to a long trip through space and back, and you're building that relationship for long term, or you're just closing for one time, one off.
Okay, so I didn't know if you said build or build, but I think they go
Build. Yeah.
okay? I think they go hand in hand right here, but yeah, Nathan, you're exactly right. At this particular juncture, this is where you can go into close. So from a sales competency perspective, it dovetails really well with plan, approach, dialogue, close, but then what? Then what?
After close, well, what he was saying, you can build a relationship with them so they can come back.
Okay, but what does that mean? So now you've planned, you've approached, you've done your dialogue, questioning, listening, you've closed, you're building. Okay, you've got the trust built up, right? They respect you, they value a relationship with you. Now what? What do you do then? I mean, let's take it as an example. Like, all right, you went through that whole process. You're like, peace out, I'm out of here. We're done. So what's the next step?
That's just the beginning.
Right? So what do you do here? You've done this. What's next?
What I would do in that situation, and I look at it, I relate to my day-to-day. And I say, okay, I'm gonna focus on entering and opening the relationship with one solution or one product. And then I'm gonna really dive deep into the business. Once I have them, once they're as a customer in our system, once we've invoiced, we've showed them, we've serviced them, it's just the beginning because there's many solutions, many services that I can offer.
Would you agree or disagree with Stephen?
No.
You'd agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
That comes with starting to learn more about them.
Okay.
You start to live. Now they know you. Now they respect you. Now you have a relationship with them, meaning they
trust you.
They trust you and they are opening themselves on what their other pain points are.
Think it's easier at this point to get back in there and see them now?
Yes.
For sure.
Why?
Because you've gone through the whole pyramid. You don't have to do it again.
They
You don't
trust
have to
you.
do it again because they already have, you got to that level that you don't have to start the process over from that particular person.
So they like you, they value a relationship with you.
Yeah, you could be
You started
humanized.
dating down here, as you said, right?
Yeah.
And now you're in this kind of
You're
marriage,
getting married.
right? Now you're in this marriage. Now you have an opportunity anytime you want to do the last step
Follow up.
in the sales methodology. Plan, approach, dialogue, close, follow-up. It's a perpetual loop. It's a perpetual loop. That's what sales and selling is all about. The methodology should match your relationship building skills. Plan, approach, dialogue, close, follow-up. If you can follow those in any relationship, in any sale, you will be successful.
But you have to know when to follow up and not be a pest.
But again, we talk about, listen, you've said that a couple of times now, but that's all about sales and salespeople knowing emotional intelligence, self-awareness. Checking in is okay. Checking in every day is not okay.
Right.
Checking in every week is probably a little bit more cadence than people would like. Right?
Similar to when I was telling you that recruiter for like work, she used to call when you're looking for jobs or whatever, but now she's like, oh, well, if I don't hear first, I like to call every month just to see if the person's happy at their job or whatever, but once a month I don't think is that bad. But it becomes a pest if it's like every week, for instance. So like, why are you calling me?
Yeah. You can't do that.
Right.
Because then what happens is you lose this.
And then the trust, you lose the respect and the trust.
You lose it. And everything that you've worked for, everything that you've hunted for,
So
everything that you've earned
yeah.
can be lost in a second.
So as Stephen was asking the time, how long do you have like when you're talking to your reps, do you like give them like a time, like how long it should take? Obviously it's not like set, but like.
Well, I wouldn't ask my reps that at all. I think it's appropriate to ask your customers that.
Because how do you know if they're
From a
not?
perspective, how often would you like me to follow up with you? What's a good cadence for you? Typically, what I like to do is pop in once a month and see how things are going. If we need to readdress things, if we need to do things a little bit differently, is that okay with you? Do you like other time intervals? Would you like me to be in here more frequently, less frequently? My job is to add value to what you're doing.
But that from a perspective that I have, that varies quite significantly if it's a B2B business model versus a direct to consumer, where maybe Nathan is speaking to individuals
Right.
that it means everything for them in life to be able to know if at this stage they're going to be able to get the loan, they're going to be able to invest, they're going to be able to have financial opportunity.
Even from an emotional perspective, that plays a huge role. Sorry.
To where I'm speaking maybe with a company that has a certain cadence of product cycle, and they're fine speaking every 2 weeks to follow up on how the quality is, et cetera, et cetera.
Bottom line is you're not going to know that unless you ask them. And again, that puts you out of the like phase into the trust phase. That puts you out of that annoying rep phase or that annoying salesperson phase, and you're addressing it and you're doing it by what their expectations are, not yours.
In my line of work, like I review like the whole package or whatever, and like I underwrite the loan and then I review the loan. But the best lenders are the ones who give me all the information up front. Like if it's an investment property, they give me the whole rent roll. They give me all their financial statements. They give me all the tax return. They give me a profit and loss statement. But if you go back and forth and ask the customer, can I get this? Then they're like, why didn't you ask me before, right? So like one call should get all the whole package together, right? So like I've had issues with some lenders who are like, oh, why do I need this? But I'm like, because it's like needed. And then you go back and the customer doesn't want to. Or for instance, I had to review a credit report for the customer and right now they don't want to get pinged on their credit. And so they froze their credit report. And then it's like, but I need them to open it, and it's like, they give you like a small time frame to open the credit report, and then you go back, it's like, oh, I need to open it again, and they're like, well, why are you bothering me? Why can't you get this all done right away in the initial, instead of going back and forth, because then they don't trust you anymore, they think you're a clown. They don't
What's one way
respect
that
you.
you can combat that though?
By what?
By what is one way that you can combat that feeling that that person is putting out on you?
By doing it all at once at the beginning.
By doing it all at once at the beginning, what else?
By explaining to them that this is the process.
Okay, so explaining to them meaning what? Meaning, okay, what was the word that we used earlier? CORE.
By communicating.
So your communication and how you communicate that information at the very beginning
Right.
will minimize sales friction,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You vibing with me? Right? So how you communicate all of these things will minimize what we call sales friction. Hey, let me just explain right up front, and I want to be open and transparent with you. My job is to add value to what you're doing. I might have to call you a couple of times. And I just want you to know that up front, that as we go through your loan, there might be some additional information that I'm going to need. I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to be overburdensome on you, but I just want to let you know up front that there might be a couple of calls back and forth, and I know it might be annoying at the time, but just trust that I'm doing the job for you.
And you prepare them for it.
Exactly.
Well, that's.
And I'll relate this to my job right now. The process to obtain Cosentix is not the easiest in the world. But what we do and what we coach and what we train our representatives to do is to partner with the biologic coordinators in the office, to partner with the medical assistants in the office and say, hey, listen, in order for your physician to make the most informed decision, you might have to do a prior authorization every 90 days or every 60 days. And I understand that that's not the optimal use of your time, but the patient is going to be covered because they're on a great product. Right? So there's a way that you can combat that off the beginning, and it's all about how we communicate that information up front.
That's true. So it's not necessarily, you're explaining to them and explain how the process is going to go, instead of making them feel, why is he doing this? You're wasting my time. But if you say up front, I'm going to be doing this, you prepare them for it.
No surprises.
Right. I'm just
Minimizes sales friction.
So
Right.
yes.
That's the whole purpose.
Questioning and listening.
Yep, questioning and listening.